Hello everyone and welcome to A Slice of My Life. This video is about the Valkyrie by Vosteed Knives, and my first encounter with this knife was when Samson showed his to me. Apart from its good looks, it makes a very nice clinking sound during deployment and closure. Right off the bat, it's a button lock knife, and to be exact, Vosteed calls this a track lock knife that features 3 deployment options: thumb stud, flipper tab, and front flipper tab. For full transparency, I'm not affiliated with Vosteed and I purchased this myself. I've been carrying and using this grey G10 version for the past few weeks and I like it so much that I purchased another variant, so I'm taking the opportunity to share with you what to expect for the unboxing experience, and while I'm at it, I'm going to perform a scale swap. Let's go straight to the unboxing. And I've always chuckled at the thought of using a knife to unpackage another knife. After working past the shrink wrap, remove the rather boring looking outer cardboard sleeve to get to a beautiful main case. Now I must say that I'm very impressed by this case. It's a tin case with a sort of thick satin-like finish, and I can't remember the last time I unboxed a knife that came in a case that felt as premium as this. I also love the color choice here, dark navy blue with a copper accent. Opening the case reveals the knife in a fabric knife pouch that's wearing a Vosteed faux leather Ranger eye patch, a brochure, an embroidered Velcro patch, a pair of stickers, and a cleaning cloth. The Valkyrie comes in a thin plastic sleeve, and this one that I received seemed to have been bathed in lube, so I had to wipe it down a little bit. So let's take a closer look at the second Valkyrie I purchased. It's the dark green micarta version that features a dark stonewash finish on the Nitro V blade with coated liners, pocket clip, and hardware including the lock button. Action out of the box is, needless to say, very good. And what I'm doing here is to try to discern the difference in sound between the two versions, but I'm happy to say that it is rather negligible. I'd like to jump ahead to quickly touch on the ergonomics of the Valkyrie. The scales feature a generous bevel all around, which, right off the bat, already looks like it'll be providing good comfort, so that's already a plus point. When gripping it in a standard or hammer grip, the notch around the pivot area allows for your index finger to sit in very comfortably and intuitively, and the flipper tab lines up perfectly, which creates some sort of an extended finger guard or bolster area. In a thumb support grip, the spine of the blade features just enough jimping and also has some swedges, and while the swedges do feel nice to the touch, it doesn't offer any additional grip, so you'd have to take note of that. On that note, I appreciate the inclusion of a forward finger choil, so choking up on the knife is a pleasant experience. Moving on to the ice pick and reverse ice pick grips that I almost never ever use, and I'm doing this just for illustrative purposes. I'm not facing any problems here as well. Lastly, the pointer grip, and simply put, I've got no qualms here too. Now let's take a moment to appreciate the design and machining of the Valkyrie. I'd like to point out that the versions that I have on hand are the sheep's foot variants with Nitro V blade steel, and there's another variant that features a blade shape that Vosteed calls a modified sax blade shape. Sax. CX? Sax. I don't know how to pronounce that word, but I've heard people pronouncing it as sax blade, so yeah. The one on the left, as I have already shared, features a dark stonewash blade and dark green micarta scales, and the one on the right features a satin blade finish with grey G10 scales. The Valkyrie also features a deep carry pocket clip, as well as a standoff that allows you to wrap a lanyard if you'd like, but it's cutting it really close. I think 550 paracord might be a bit too thick, so use something that's thinner than that. I've been using the grey G10 version for a couple of weeks, and my experience with the fit and finish has been great so far, and I'm happy to say that the green micarta version also has a very good fit and finish out of the box, with no lock rock or blade play, good centering, and obviously good action. For a quick size comparison, and since I have 2 Valkyries, I'll have one deployed and one closed. The references for the size comparisons are a Chris Reeves Knives Small in Cosi, a Victorinox Classic SD, and an average sized lighter. From here on, I'm gonna do the scale swap just for the fun of it, but since I'm disassembling the Valkyrie, I decided to take the opportunity to show you the internals and how it's put together, and maybe to shed some light as to possibly why Vosteed calls this locking mechanism a track lock. We start by removing the 2 T6 Torx screws that hold the pocket clip in place, and I like to point out that the screws sit fully recessed, so that's an awesome plus point. I think all knives with deep carry pocket clips should always have recessed screw slots. Then undo the T6 screw on the scale that holds onto the standoff, followed by the T8 pivot screw next. One thing I'd like to point out is that accessing the pivot screw is done on the spring side of the button, which is a little strange in my opinion. Most knives featuring a button lock has the access point on the button side, so take note of the spring. After undoing the screws, lift off the scale to expose the liner. This micarta version has a lot of excess lube. Removing the liner shows the blade and the bearings. Here's a look at how the liner sits in the scales, and I'm showing this to you because I'd like to point out that the two Valkyries in this video are the newer version of the Valkyries, where the scales have a lip that houses the liners flushed and recessed. The older version of the Valkyrie, on the other hand, features liners that are of the same width as the scales and everything sits sandwiched together. This also affects the sound profile of the Valkyrie, but I'll talk more about that a little later. At this point, I'd like to highlight that the button is attached to a track that's cut out in the blade. I believe the button is screwed in because you won't be able to remove it from the track, which leads me to believe this is the reason why Vosteed calls this the track lock. So anyway, I didn't try to remove the button. I have no need to, so I'm just treating the button and the blade as a single piece. And that's the full disassembly of the Valkyrie. Now I'd like to touch on the action and sound profile of the Valkyrie. The action of the Valkyrie, needless to say, is very good in stock form. No relubing, no adjustments, just pure fidget fun in multiple ways. While I enjoy the sound that my Valkyries make, to be very honest, due to the revised liner and scale construction, the sound profile is a lot more muted than on the original version, which is a little disappointing to me, but it still sounds pretty sweet nonetheless. The way I feel about it now makes me want to hunt down one of the older variants, even though they feature 154cm as the blade steel. That sound profile of the older Valkyrie is something that I would describe as shook in Singlish. I can't truly describe it in any other way except that the sound is damn shook. Alright, it's time to wrap up this video. I purchased these Valkyries for $72 each on Amazon at different points in time as they seem to be constantly sold out on the Vosteed website. I'm a little disappointed with myself for not snagging one of the older versions of the Valkyrie before they sold out, but I must say that I'm lucky to have solid friends like Samson who are also in the hobby that snagged one and let me try it out. Thanks, Samson. Now I don't recall the price point of the original version, but I'm assuming that it's cheaper due to the use of 154cm as the blade steel. So at $72 for this newer Nitro V version, I'd say that it's a pretty fair price point, but it's something I would not consider within the budget category. To be fair, brand and reputation play a big part in the perception of value, and in my opinion, Vosteed is not yet a very big name in the game. However, the design, machining, fit and finish of the knife must not be discounted. I personally don't care too much about brand names, where it's from or where the products are made, as long as I'm getting what I perceive to be fair value of what I'm paying for, and in the case of the Valkyrie, I feel that this would easily be in the $100 to $120 range if it were, say, a Kaiser-made knife. An interesting topic to touch on is that I saw a lot of negative reviews about the Vosteed Valkyrie, but to be fair, those negative points were about the older version. I'm pretty sure Vosteed made a lot of improvements since then, which is kind of understandably why I'm not able to find any of the original variants online anymore, but I'd like to just add as a closing statement that the Valkyries that I have on hand are knives that I'm satisfied with. If you're interested in getting a Vosteed Valkyrie for yourself, I'll have the link in the description box. It's an Amazon link though, so it may change over time. If the link doesn't work, just Google it or search it up on Amazon. And that is it everyone, thank you so much for sharing in this slice of my life. If you enjoyed this video, please clicky the likey. Also, a sub from you means a lot to me, and please hit the bell while you're at it. Once again everyone, this video was all about the Vosteed Valkyrie folding pocket knife, and I will catch all of you in my next slice. Bye!